Story 1. As we were kids, a new boy moved into the neighborhood. He told us that his father worked as an astronaut. No one believed him and we made fun of him. However, after many years, we got to know him and his family very well, and it turned out his father was a real astronaut. It was the coolest job ever. Story 2. When I was a sophomore in high school, I had a very popular friend who was on the cheer squad. She admitted at a slumber party that after ball games, she sometimes got a ride home from the coach, and they had sex in his car. It was hard to believe, and she would say, "Oh, I'm just kidding." We never told anyone. Years later, we all found out it was true. She became pregnant and had an abortion. Apparently, the coach's wife found out, and he abruptly quit his coaching job. He and his family moved to another state. The members of the Board of Education knew about it and quietly covered it up. Story 3. A kid in school told me his dad was Goose Gossage, a famous baseball player when I was growing up. Sure, Keith. Whatever. He was right. His dad was Goose Gossage. Keith and his brother were on my little league team, and his dad came to a couple of games, huge mustache and all. Story 4. In high school, there was a rumor that one of the athletics coaches was having sex with a student in the training room. She was known to have mental health issues, and he was one of the most popular and beloved teachers in the school for over 20 years, so everyone thought she was making up stories for attention. It was not made up, and he went to prison. Story 5. There was an administrator at our school. People called her the Dominator because she was also in charge of discipline. A rumor spread that she was a sexual predator targeting women. I thought it was just people being unkind to an unattractive, awkward staff member. Then 5 women came forward about this woman's conduct in the girls' locker room. Suddenly, the nickname was not so funny anymore. Story 6. My aunt disappeared before I was born, missing for 2.5 years. My mother said she jumped off the Grand Canyon, and it took that long to find her. I did not fully believe it, as my mother tends to embellish stories. Years later, I found her death certificate. The cause of death was blunt force trauma from injuries sustained by falling down a cliffside in the Grand Canyon. She had an IQ of 170 and many mental health issues. I have never met her, and I miss her a lot. I wish she had stayed. It affected my mother deeply. Story 7. I went to grade school with Buddy Guy's grandson. We all thought he was lying until Buddy Guy actually came in and performed music for us. He was a really nice kid and was very humble. They have a lot of money and were not snobby at all. They were a nice family. Story 8. Someone I knew had a man living on their street, and it was said that he drove his car wearing a helmet. One time I saw him doing that. It was a normal car with a roof and he sat inside wearing a helmet. Story 9. Some basketball coach in the next town was rumored to be dating one of the players. He was well into his 20s, and she hinted at it to teammates, but nothing was ever confirmed. A few years later, she graduated from high school, and they packed up and left town. I have no idea where they went. I imagine he did it to escape prosecution. Story 10. Somehow my dad heard that former New Jersey Governor James McGreevey was gay years before he came out. To be clear, my dad is not politically connected and has never been someone who thinks all celebrities are secretly gay or anything. He is also not homophobic. I remember this because it was out of character for him. Once McGreevey was in the public eye, my dad was certain he was gay and had heard it somewhere. Years later, it turned out to be true. Also, my Spanish teacher in middle school grew up with Ricky Martin and knew he was gay well before he came out. It was a little unusual to be telling 11-year-olds this in 2000, but to her credit, she was not homophobic about it. She was like, "I knew his family in Puerto Rico and he is into men." Story 11. There were mass graves of missing Indigenous children at Canadian residential schools. I remember a Vancouver downtown Eastside activist Catholic reverend who had been raising awareness about this issue for decades because he heard about it from the local Indigenous community. He was labeled as crazy, had his life threatened, and no one took him seriously. Then, in 2020, the Kamloops residential school grounds were tested, and approximately 200 small graves were detected. Since then, many residential schools in Canada have discovered similar findings. Tragic. Story 12. About 3 weeks before the Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky scandal was revealed in detail, a friend in Washington, D.C. told me there was a rumor of a semen-soaked dress that would be used as evidence against the president. That seemed impossible, utter nonsense, outrageous and slanderous lies. Except it was true. Story 13. One day, an unfamiliar man appeared in my advanced placement English class, sitting in the back. Our teacher informed us that he was a graduate student in secondary education. He would be observing her classes for about a week. He sat there quietly, and we did not give him much thought. It seemed a bit odd that he had no books and never took notes, but whatever. A couple of days later, a rumor spread through the school. He had actually been an escaped mental patient. Aha, yes, sure. We all congratulated ourselves on being too smart to fall for this crazy rumor. Before that class started, we told the teacher about the rumor. She informed us that it was, in fact, true. She was not supposed to say anything more about it, so that was all the information we ever got. It was even worse than it sounded. To be committed involuntarily in that state, a person has to be considered a danger to themselves or others. School security was not really a thing in the 1980s. Story 14. I remember knowing George Michael was gay back in the 1980s, shortly after Wham! How? One of my friends was from a wealthy family and had invited him with his male partner to their family's Christmas party. My friend told me that her heart was broken because he was her big crush, but he and his boyfriend were very sweet to her. Story 15. There was a secret society of men in my hometown, middle-aged country club members, who recruited high school girls for sexual activities and paid them through the country club's financial records. When the story broke, essentially nothing happened. Story 16. 2 different hostage situations. I used to volunteer at a soup kitchen. I gave this man and 2 women a ride once. He found me on social media, and we talked a bit. He seemed to really want to see me in person. Later, someone said he had abducted and raped women. I thought they were joking. They were not. He was eventually arrested for it. This is not the only hostage situation from the town. It is just the only one I did not realize was an actual statement and not a strange joke. Story 17. As children, there was one child who was always different. Many random stories would surface, but since he lived a few houses away, he mostly stayed inside. One day, a story emerged about some inappropriate interaction between him and the family's male dog. Turned out it was not gossip. He was caught simultaneously by his father and neighbors while engaging in this behavior on the back patio. That family moved away quickly. Story 18. There was a shy kid at my high school who was really nice to everyone. He said, "Good morning" or "Good afternoon" to everyone and always waved hello. He wasn't your typical popular kid and didn't hang out with the cool kids. But everyone liked him despite him not having many close friends. One day, he didn't show up to school, and a rumor started that he had murdered 2 women. I thought it was a cruel rumor and didn't believe it. A week went by, and he still hadn't shown up. Then a news article came out. He had shot 2 women to death in the next town over. He was originally sent to juvenile detention but was eventually tried as an adult and went to prison. Story 19. In a previous career, everyone in the laboratory found out about the slightly creepy neckbeard we had. He was confirmed to be a swinger. Long story short, he invited the new girl to a party. Everyone there disappeared halfway through the night. She assumed they were all off doing drugs and went off in search of the room for cocaine, but instead found a massive orgy involving him, his wife, and around 20 others. I had found out about his preferences a few months earlier. Another man swore blind he saw him and his wife being intimate with someone in a club. Neither of us was believed until the above incident happened. Story 20. There was a rumor about a regular customer at my workplace who was involved in human trafficking. He acted very strangely. I believe the rumor started when he brought in a young girl, and the energy felt wrong. After that, he kept coming in and buying young girls' underwear in bulk. Story 21. At school, one of the teachers was having an inappropriate relationship with a student in my class. It went on for months. They denied it until another student walked in on them and reported the incident. While many of us from my year were at my 18th birthday party, they were staying in a hotel near the coast for the weekend. She lost her job and was never allowed to teach again. Also, someone in my year reportedly conceived her first child in the local McDonald's restroom at age 15. Story 22. When a new girl joined our school, some students warned us that she was a bully. The problem was we were in the 9th grade, and they were speaking about their experiences with her in the 1st grade. We thought they were exaggerating. That girl was truly second only to Satan himself. Story 23. Henry Cavill's nephew told everyone his uncle was Superman. Nobody believed him. Then he brought him to school. Story 24. A fresh out-of-college teacher started at my school my junior year in the mid-1990s. He had done his student teaching at a school in a nearby town. We are talking about tiny rural towns with populations of around 250 to 350 people, so everyone knows everyone. The rumor from day one was that he was dating the other town's star female basketball player. She would have been a sophomore when he was her student teacher. I should also point out that he was kind of creepy, but even then I thought there was no way that could be true and ignored the rumors. The teacher wore the tightest pants I have ever seen and would get way too close to girls when he talked to us. One classmate even warned me not to go into his office alone. Fast forward a few years. I was engaged at 22. I know, too young. But it worked out and we have been married 25 years. Who shows up at the bridal expo but the creepy teacher and the basketball player? I was shocked and let all my friends know. They were younger and apparently it had already been confirmed to them, but they had not said anything. It was the 1990s, so unfortunately the reaction was ew, gross. Instead of predator, call the authorities. Another teacher's sister was married to the teacher's cousin. Small towns, gotta love them. And he had been bringing the basketball player to family occasions from day one. A grown man bringing a sophomore in high school as his date to family events, and no one batted an eye. Gross. Anyway, they never got married. Both married other people and seem to be doing well now. Too bad for him, but good for her. Story 25. At my last job, there were rumors that the chief information officer was involved in disturbing activities, such as paying sex workers to allow him to abuse them. There were also rumors that he had tried the same with some of his administrative assistants, and that it was costing the company a significant amount to keep the matter quiet. One morning, while I was getting ready for work, his mugshot appeared on the local news. He had been arrested in a prostitution sting, where the sex workers collaborated with local police to address problematic clients. He voluntarily resigned the same day. The company did not comment on the situation, did not make a statement to the news, and did not inform the employees. He subsequently advanced to an upper management position at a major technology company less than a year later. This is not a story where serious consequences happen to a wealthy individual. Story 26. My friend in the military casually said, "Oh yeah, I grew up with Tupac. Our mothers were friends." We said, "Yeah, whatever," and gave her some teasing. One year we went to her house for Thanksgiving, and sure enough, there were childhood photos of her and Tupac as kids, just being kids. Story 27. When I was in elementary school, one guy told me that a guy about 4 or 5 years older than us was the best knife player in the world in Counter-Strike 1.6. He would have been around 11 or 12 years old back then, so maybe the best player in school or the neighborhood, but the best in the whole world. Now, fast forward to the late 2010s, and my brothers were watching a Counter-Strike Global Offensive Major Final. There on stage was Golden, who played for Fnatic. Story 28. A man had been cheating on his wife with 5 different women from work. He promised all of them he would leave his wife and marry them. He got 2 of them pregnant. One was my friend's wife, who wanted another baby and he did not. The cheater's wife found out and left him. My friend found out his wife was pregnant, and she claimed it was his. My friend immediately checked to confirm that his vasectomy was successful. It was, so he accused his wife of cheating. She admitted it and left him. She went to the baby's father's home and told his wife everything. That wife kicked him out. Everyone got divorced, including the other pregnant women he was cheating with. The cheating man married my friend's ex. He later got a 3rd woman pregnant whom he was cheating with. My friend's ex then kicked him out and tried to get back with my friend. He told her to go away and ended up remarrying his old high school sweetheart. Story 29. A friend of mine likes to tell this story often, so I'll share it here without giving away too much information for my friend's privacy. My friend lives a very private life now, but when he was younger, he tried to impress people by saying his parents were famous. When he wasn't allowed to have people from school over to confirm, other kids started rumors as they usually did. Being in the mid-2000s also didn't help, as the "don't trust everything you read on the internet" slogan was rampant. By the time he was finishing secondary school, he had a reputation for being the kid who lied about having a famous relative because he said his parents were famous. No one believed him, and he was bullied or teased about it. By his final years, he had learned to say nothing about it and just kept to himself and his friend group. He had been in the school music program for a while, and they had been invited to visit a recording studio for those interested in joining the music industry. They would learn the work of a producer and get to sit in on a band, who had given permission, to see how things worked when a band was performing. When they arrived, the producer showed them around, talked with the group about the industry and things they would have to do. They were asked if they wanted to sit in on a recording session. The group agreed and went into the booth in small groups between recordings. When it was his turn, he and a group of 2 girls and 1 other guy went in and were instructed to sit on a couch in the back. They watched the band record the song, but it took a few takes because the singer was off. When the producer and assistant went to ask what was wrong, they came back laughing and said the singer kept getting distracted because my friend kept flipping him off and wanted to know if it was because he said no to my friend about his after-school plans. My friend said he had no clue what they were talking about. The producer relayed the message to the singer. The singer came back into the booth and told my friend to knock it off or he would be babysitting his younger sister on the day of a concert he had been looking forward to. The rest of the kids in the group were shocked. The singer then said that either my friend could stay at the studio or go home after they were done, but to expect the singer to be home late if he didn't stay. My friend said he would stay at the studio since it was closer to home. Afterward, the other kids told the rest of the group that the singer had told him off, and my friend said, "Yeah, I tried to tell people my parents were famous, but no one listened." He later found out that his parents had spoken with the teacher organizing the music program and had asked them to come in while they were recording an album. Their producer friend was happy to show off his work. My friend ended up moving across the world, where he lives a pretty nice life. He owns his own music school, production company, and a venue or 2 as well. Story 30. I was told the Prince William pegging story by a friend who once dated Prince Andrew. Years later, it went viral. Story 31. I sat next to Anwar El-Sadat's grandson in high school in the early 1990s for an entire semester. Everybody talked about how he was his grandson, but I didn't believe it. After Google became popular, I found out the rumor was true. In hindsight, I am glad nothing bad happened in my American history class that led to my demise or his. Story 32. When I was in high school, I knew an older guy who was always kind of crazy. He joined the Navy, would often go absent without leave, and eventually smoked a joint the day before drug testing so that he would get discharged. Then he moved to San Francisco, and the rumor was that he was running around the city on a scooter. Late at night, he would blast out of an alley across a major street without bothering to look for traffic. That was just something he did periodically. I didn't believe it until he showed up at my house with his girlfriend in a wheelchair, 1 leg in a cast, and a big question mark scar on his skull. He eventually committed suicide. Story 33. Okay, so recently I was spending time with a woman, we'll call her Amber. She has a close friend, and he was telling me how she was dominating him, and how he moaned out Odin. From this small piece of information, I uncovered a group of related homosexual individuals in my small hometown. I do not care about the sexual orientation aspect of it all. I am intimate only with myself, not with immediate family members. Story 34. A work colleague was Tom Cruise's brother. Turns out they were half-brothers or step-brothers. I can't remember which. This was not a rumor, but first-hand experience. Years ago, I found a new insurance agent in the Dallas area whose last name was Walken. I immediately thought he looked and sounded like the actor Christopher Walken. He was indeed Christopher Walken's brother. He had also been an actor in his younger days because their mother was quite the stage mom. Later, he moved from New York to Texas to be an insurance agent and raise his kids in a more conservative environment. Last I heard, he had retired to Florida. Story 35. 45 years ago, my cousin, who is the same age as me, told me about having a baby and placing him for adoption a couple of years before. Apparently, she got pregnant when she was a freshman and was sent to our aunt in California to stay until she could enter a maternity home in the Midwest and have the baby. She showed me a photo. I thought he was a child she babysat and was making the whole thing up. On the drive home, I told my mom, "I can't believe what my cousin told me," and recounted the whole story. She told me later that the whole thing was true and my cousin got in serious trouble for telling me. I was totally blown away. Story 36. Purple Aki was a man who asked children to touch their arm muscles. Turned out to be stranger than that. Story 37. One of the children I went to grade school with had a father who was the baseball coach and easily the most unpleasant parent of all. He actually managed to accomplish something which was impressive. Years later, I found out that the man was actually his stepfather. The boy himself was the child of a football player who did not want him, and his mother's arrangement was essentially that he paid her to keep quiet. Story 38. When I was in high school, there was a theater kid that everyone said was the son of a famous actor. I refused to believe it because they looked nothing alike. I figure theater kids make things up all the time to seem cool. He wasn't a bad person. I just didn't believe the rumor. I wasn't friends with him because he was an underclassman, and we had different friend groups with 0 classes together. Years after high school, I saw this guy outside my local bar and decided to say hello. I wasn't expecting him to know or remember who I was. He said I looked familiar, but I just figured I would say hello. We shook hands and caught up a little about what we had been doing since high school. That was about the end of the conversation. As I turned to walk into the bar, his dad walked out. We made eye contact. I smiled and nodded to him. He smiled and patted me on the shoulder as he walked by. It was unmistakably the actor I had always heard was his father. The actor was Stephen Bauer. Story 39. When I was 15, during the peak GCSE period, I heard from a friend, let's call him Josephine, that a girl named Raina was running naked around my local corner shop. I did not believe this, as Josephine was known to be untruthful. I went to the corner shop with that mindset, expecting nothing unusual. Instead, I saw Raina running naked. To this day, I wonder if she still does. After noticing me, she seemed to stop. I think she changed her name to Josie. In summary, do not go to the corner shop without underwear. People will notice. Story 40. Unlike the initial false statements from Anthony Fauci, COVID-19 was developed and accidentally released from the Wuhan laboratory, which the United States helped fund. It was not a cross-species virus transmitted to a person in Wuhan from eating a bat. Rest in peace, Ozzy. Story 41. You would not survive knowing my most unbelievable story because you cannot even handle your friends having secret group chats about you. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.